So, 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So you graduate from John Hanson.
Right.
And 10th grade comes. In 10th grade, most kids are 15.
Correct.
So here it is about to come full circle. You said you lived with your parents up until you were 15.
Correct.
So the next question I typically ask is, did you live with either your mom or your dad?
Neither.
Neither. So did you run away from home?
So the story I tell people, to make it short and easy for people to understand, is I left home at 15.
You left home at 15.
People can understand that.
Right.
What literally happened, Khalid, was home left me.
What does that mean?
So what that means is that by the time I was age 15, my parents' relationship, their marriage, had deteriorated.
Okay.
Outside of my purview, like I wasn't paying attention. You know, you're a kid, you don't really know. They kept it.
You're into your own personal life.
Plus, they kept it away from us a lot
Okay.
too. There wasn't like a lot of screaming and shouting and fighting or whatever, but it got to a point where my mom said, I cannot stay here anymore. I have to go. And she gathered up the girls and she took them. And the day before she left, the girls came to me and said, hey, Mom's leaving. We're going with her. Why don't you come with us? And I thought to myself,
wow, that happened. So
yeah.
all three of your sisters came.
Well, two of them, the two younger ones.
The two younger ones. Where do you remember where you were? Like, were you in your room, outside?
We were in the kitchen.
In the kitchen?
At the kitchen. Well, in our dining room, at the dining room table. It was
Okay.
right next to the kitchen.
Okay.
So I remember sitting there, reading a book, eating a bowl of cereal.
Right.
You know, and my two younger sisters come up and say, hey, Mom's leaving. Why don't you come with us? And I said, it only took me a second to think about it. I said, no, I can't do that. I said, you guys go. I'm going to stay here with Dad. And I said, 'cause the reason why is I felt at that time that if I left, my dad would harm himself. It would be devastating to him if everyone left him.
Okay.
So that's why I stayed.
And your older sister was already gone.
No, she went with my mom. She was only, I was 15, she was 17. So she hadn't even graduated high school yet.
Okay. Okay. Oh, but the two younger ones came to you.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Got it. So your mom left. She goes where?
She took the girls, and for the first couple of months, they were at an undisclosed location.
Meaning you didn't even know where they were.
No.
Okay.
No, I knew they were safe, but I didn't know where they were.
So it's just you and your dad in the house now.
For about 2 months, yeah.
Okay. What was that like?
It was interesting at first. It was weird, obviously.
Right.
But my dad and I would like watch movies, and for some reason, I don't know, maybe my dad felt like he was going to open up about something. He actually told me about his life for the first time. Like I never really knew what had happened to him as a kid growing up. And so he told me his story.
So it was like watching one of these interviews live.
Oh man, it was brutal, Khalid.
Okay.
You don't know what happens to somebody until they tell you their experience.
Exactly.
And then suddenly you're like, I didn't know that happened to you. And I felt really bad that had happened to my dad, but it explained a lot.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
But he only could stick around for about 2 months. What happened was he was going out and he went to a nightclub and he met a woman, and then pretty early on actually, and then after 2 months or so had gone by, he basically moved in with her over in Virginia. So he left the house too. He would come home on the weekends, and then he would come home once a month, and then he just stopped coming home altogether.
Oh wow. So which means you were in the house at 15 by yourself.
Yep.
How were you paying for everything?
So my dad would pay somebody paid the mortgage.
Okay.
I don't know who paid it, but either my dad or my mom or both paid the mortgage, and they paid the utility bills. So every time the bills would come in, I would put them up on top of the piano in the living room in the same spot all the time, and he would come by and pick them up like once a month. Oh,
so you might not even be there, but you would come home and be like, parents got the bills.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the house got paid for, so I had a roof over my head.
Okay.
But I pretty much had to get a job.
I was about to say, what were you doing for like clothes and food?
So that first year, my dad took me clothes shopping for school, for example, right? And so I had clothes for 10th grade for that year. But that was pretty much it. After that, I kind of had to get it myself, you know, and then I had to buy my own food, and I had to cook my own food and all that kind of stuff.
With what money?
I had a job. I had to get a job. So
at 15?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because like today you can't work at 15 unless you get some type of special provision.
Yeah, back then you had to have what was called what do they call it? A worker's permit.
Okay.
Something like that. I think it's like a worker's permit. If you were between 14 and 17 or 14 and 18, you had to have a permit to have
Right.
a job. It had to be a piece of paper signed by your parents that said they understood you were working.
Okay, like today in most states, you can't, like a kid can't work until they're 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you got to get working papers and.
Yeah, so back then we had a worker's permit, but I just signed his name and just got the job. And it's like, okay.
So what high school did you go to?
So I started off going to Oxon Hill High School because all of my friends from Forest Heights were supposed to go to that school. That was their next step from John Hanson. They would all go to Oxon Hill Senior High School.
Which was the neighborhood school.
Which was the neighborhood school for that part of Oxon Hill.
Okay.
Oxon Hill's pretty big, though. There was another school further away that was called Potomac Senior High School, and my neighborhood, the lower half of my neighborhood, all of Birchwood City, all of Birchwood City was designated as we would go to this Potomac Senior High School. But all the kids that were going there were either kids that I knew from the lower part of my neighborhood or all the Valley View kids that I didn't really even know that well.
Okay.
Right? So most of my friends lived in Forest Heights, and they were all going to Oxon Hill.
Got it.
So I enrolled in the U.S. Air Force Reserve Officers Training Corps, ROTC.
Okay.
ROTC, right? It's because Oxon Hill offered ROTC and Potomac didn't, I was allowed to go to Oxon Hill for the 10th grade year.
Okay, got
So
it.
Cut my hair real short and put on the uniform and,
What was that Oxon Hill experience like?
Oxon Hill experience was mostly good school-wise, but because I was on my own by then, I didn't pay too much attention to school as much anymore as I used to. Like, I used to be a straight-A student.
The discipline was going in your house.
Yeah.
So now it's like you're just basically doing what you want.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you still go to school every day?
Well, I went to school most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I mostly went to school, yeah.
Okay.
I went to school enough to pass my classes. I did skip a lot, though.
Did you work? So correction, you just said you worked where?
So when I was 15, I worked at a Hardee's, and then when I was 16, I got a job at another Hardee's nearby.
Hardee's is a restaurant.
Yeah, Hardee's like a hamburger place. It's like a fast food place.
Okay.
So I worked there.
What did you do?
I was a burger flipper.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I made the French fries. I made the burgers. I used to close a lot.
Okay.
Because when the restaurant closes, you have to clean the entire place top to bottom. You got to clean all the grills, all the fry vats, all the floors, all the tables. Like, everything has to be cleaned for the next day.
Right.
So if you closed, you got to work extra hours. You could make extra money. So I would volunteer to close because I went to school during the day, and then I would work in the afternoon and then at night. And so I'd get put on the closing schedule all the time. I'd sign up for it because it was extra money. And, restaurants, they have food.
Oh, got it.
Right.
So how am I going to eat when my parents are going, my family is going, I eat at work. Right.
Yep.
Okay, that was a cool solution to come up with.
It was.
Okay. And then by the time you get home from work, you fall asleep. And,
yeah, you're wiped out.
Okay,
At that
got
point,
it.
you're covered in grease, and you're just like, ugh.
So that's how you survived that first year
Yeah.
of living basically by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was that? That was the school outside like. What was the in your house like?
Oh, Khalid, the party started in 1977 and didn't stop until 1980.
Can you imagine a 15-year-old having a house to themselves?
Yes, I can. I do not recommend it. It's bananas.
High level, what are some of the things that were going on in your house? Wild parties?
Well, yeah. So we didn't talk about the music thing yet, but I was a musician by then, and so
You were a musician, right. So
right.
you were playing the clarinet.
Well, I played the clarinet in junior high school, but by the time I got to the end of my junior high school year, I picked up the guitar.
Okay.
So at 14, I picked up the guitar. That's a whole other story. We can get to that one.
Okay.
And so by the time I was 15 and a half, 16, I was playing guitar in a band.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go. Let's do that story. How'd you pick up a guitar?
Oh, okay. So I was last chair clarinet.
Okay.
And anybody who's ever played in an orchestra or a symphonic band knows what the chair numbers mean.
Right.
First chair is you're the best of the best.
Exactly.
Last chair means you don't got a shot.
Right.
But I sat right next to the first chair saxophone.
Okay.
And that was a girl named Anna.
Okay.
And she was a good saxophone player.
Got it.
And so she and I would talk because she sat right next to me.
Right.
Right? And I'm a talker. So I'd talk to her. And one day, out of the blue, she said to me, I don't know how it got started, but she said to me, she goes, oh, I started playing my dad's guitar.
Okay.
At my house, just plunking around on it. And she goes, oh, you play guitar? And I said, well, I'm trying to learn. And she goes, oh, I have a guitar at my house. You want to come over sometime? And I'm like,
wow.
Right? I know. And I'm like, a guitar? Yeah, probably clueless at 14. I'm with you, Khalid.
Right,
I know,
right,
I know
right.
what you're thinking. So, so after school one day, I go over to her house.
You went?
Yeah.
You took her up on her offer?
I did. We went over to her house.
Was she the only one home?
Her parents were probably there.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We went down in the basement. She had a guitar and an amplifier set up down in the basement, and probably more things down there too, or whatever. But she goes, "Here, do this." And she picked up the electric guitar and she plugged it in and she turned it on. And then she started playing the intro riff to Chicago's 25 or 6 to 4.
Okay.
And it is a very well-known guitar riff.
Facts.
It's one of the first things that like guitar players all learn besides Smoke on the Water, right?
Right.
Back in those days, right?
Okay.
So she's playing it, and I recognize it right away because, of course, I'm into the music or everything. I'm just mesmerized by her playing the guitar.
Right.
And she goes, "Here, now you do this," and she handed me the guitar. So I put it on, and she showed me where to put my fingers, and I start playing the riff, and I kind of picked it up after a couple minutes. I kind of got it, you know. And so by the time I had that thing going, she reaches over and she picks up her saxophone, and she starts blowing that solo line at the beginning, you know,
right.
that horn line, right? And all of a sudden, it was like magic. Like people are playing music that you recognize. Like the orchestra, the symphony was like, I didn't listen to symphonies.
Right.
So I didn't recognize the music. But 25 or 6 to 4, I know that song.
Right up your alley.
And here we are playing that song. And when we were done, she said, "Hey, you want to take that guitar home and practice it some more and then come back?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I told my daughter the story, Khalid, and she's like, "Dude, she liked you."
Right.
But I'm clueless, right? So I take the guitar and the amp and I take it back to my house, and my dad sees it. He's like, "What's that?" And I said, "It's a guitar that, you know, a girl from school loaned me." And he goes, "Oh, let me see it." And he played some bunch of stuff, and my dad always played guitar too.
Okay.
And he's a decent player. And so he showed me some things, and he's like, "Okay," and he showed me how to play bar chords, and he gave me a bunch of guitar lessons, like kind of on the spot.
Right.
And I just kept on going, and then by the time, this is when I was 14, and so
Okay.
that year, so it was a year before my family left, but then that year my dad also gave me his guitar that he'd had for 5 or 6 years at that point.
Okay.
So
Now, in 10th grade, you also said that you bought your own car.
I did.
So that was what money you saved up from working at Hardee's.
Yeah, so what happened was between 9th and 10th grade, I went down to the Eastern Shore where my grandparents lived.
Okay.
Because my dad couldn't leave me home in the house all summer by myself.
Okay.
I mean, you know.
Just the school year, but not the summer.
Right. Not the summer. He kind of figured out at that point, you know, things weren't going so good. So he had me go stay with my grandmother, and she got me a job, and I stayed there and worked all summer.
Where'd you work there?
I worked at Hardee's.
At Hardee's again.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
And I worked at Hardee's, and I made enough money to buy an old Volkswagen.
So you bought your own first car, not your
did.
parents. You
No.
bought it.
Well, my dad built the engine for it, so it was a Volkswagen with a blown engine.
Okay.
And so the car was not drivable.
How much did you pay for it?
I paid $100 for that car.
You paid $100 for your first car.
I did.
What was it?
It was a 1967 Volkswagen Beetle.
Wow.
In lime green.
Wow. And your dad built the engine.
And my dad built the engine.
For free, basically, because you're his son.
Yeah, and he and my
Okay.
cousin put it in. My cousin got him a blown engine. My dad took it to his machine shop. He rebuilt it completely and then brought it back. And it was overboard, 1,600 cc's and everything. It was nice.
Shout out to cousin George. That's who you bought it from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, George had the car, and George was an expert mechanic.
Oh, he was.
Expert.
So your dad was a machinist, and you had a cousin who was a mechanic.
Yep.
Okay.
George had been shade tree mechanic since he was a kid, and he owned his own garage. He owned a gas station and a garage.
Okay.
And he could build anything in that garage.
Now you said that Beetle had no radio,
No.
so you had to buy the radio.
So my grandfather had a radio and TV electronics business.
Okay.
And so he had a catalog that he loaned me. He goes, "Here, pick out a stereo out of here to go put in your car."
Okay.
I picked out an 8-track tape player and some 2 big Jensen speakers to put in the back.
Right.
And so I put the speakers in the back. I built a platform behind the rear seat, and I put the 8-track tape player up under the dashboard, and I wired it up myself. And then my cousin came and looked at it, and he laughed at me.
How much was the radio? Do you remember?
It was $150.
So the actual stereo cost more than the car. Okay. So with that being said, 10th grade ends, and you do 11th grade at Oxon Hill?
Yes, it's right. So I show up. So I really didn't like ROTC.
Okay.
I didn't like taking orders. I didn't like cutting my hair short. You know, I'm trying to play in a band. I'm trying to be a rock guy. How are you going to be in a rock band with short hair, you know? Back in the 70s, yeah, everybody had long hair, right? So I didn't really like ROTC. So I decided to go to that school but not re-enroll in the program. So I showed up the first day of school at 11th grade in the assembly area.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, hey, I didn't get a schedule, but I was here last year. can you get me a schedule for this year? And the people looked at me and they looked me up and said, okay, yeah, we see you were here last year. You know, last year you took these classes. This year you're taking these classes. Are you taking ROTC again? I said, no, I'll take something else. You know, so I took Italian for the 1 year.
Okay.
And so they said, okay, and they let me go. And so I was there for almost the entire 11th grade year.
Okay.
Almost.
So what happened?
So a month before my 11th grade year is going to end.
This would have been May of 11th grade.
May of 11th grade. So May 1979. I was working on my chemistry project. And I had a good chemistry teacher. She took a shine to me. She kind of like, all right, look, I'll take care of you.
Remember her name?
No, I don't.
All right.
But she was good though. She was a good teacher.
Okay. So you're working on your project.
Working on my project, my chemistry labs. I had to get my labs done. And everybody in the school had to go to a pep rally.
Okay.
Well, pep rally sports, Khalil.
Right.
I don't like gym.
You're not a sports guy.
No.
Got it.
So I go to the vice principal and I complain about having to go to a pep rally versus being able to do my chemistry lab. I said, can I go work on my chemistry lab? My teacher said she'll open the lab and she'll supervise us. A handful of us would rather go to chemistry.
Why'd you guys even ask?
Because pep rallies were mandatory.
Okay. Okay.
You had to go.
Okay.
And
so you wanted to get permission so you guys wouldn't get caught.
Right.
Okay, got it.
We just didn't want to go to the pep rally.
Got it.
I mean, we probably weren't going to go to the chem lab. But anyway.
High school, man.
I know, right? So the vice principal, his son's a star athlete.
Okay.
And so he says to me, he goes, well, don't you want to come out and support the teams? And I said, no. And he goes, what's your name? And like a fool, I told him
your name.
My real name.
Okay.
So he looks me up. You're not supposed to be here. So he expelled me from the school.
Because the reason why you even were allowed to go there because you were enrolled in the ROTC.
Correct.
And now that you're not in the ROTC, this is not your neighborhood school.
Correct. I'm supposed to go to the other school. We were bused to the other school.
So this is in the era of when busing was taking place.
Yes, it is.
All right. Describe that for a second.